Barley was more than just a pet to his family. He was a loyal companion, a source of joy, and a constant presence in their lives. The bond they shared was deep, built over years of love and companionship. But in a single moment, everything changed. It was meant to be a fun and relaxing getaway. The family had planned a camping trip in the beautiful forests of Michigan, a place where Barley could run freely, explore new scents, and enjoy the great outdoors. Like always, he stayed close to his owners, excitedly wagging his tail as he trotted alongside them. They had taken him on countless trips before, but this one would prove to be different. One evening, as the sun began to set, the family was setting up their camp when Barley suddenly bolted into the woods. Something had caught his attention, a rustling in the bushes, perhaps a small animal or an unfamiliar scent. His owners called out to him, expecting him to return like he always did. But this time, he didn't. Panic set in as minutes turned into hours. The family searched frantically, calling his name, whistling and clapping, hoping he would come running back, but the only response was silence. They scoured the surrounding area with flashlights, their voices echoing through the darkened forest. The thought of Barley alone, lost and possibly scared, filled them with dread. As the night deepened, their hope began to waver, but they refused to give up. The next morning, they expanded their search. They retraced their steps, put out food, and left clothing with their scent on it in hopes that Barley would find his way back. They spoke to other campers, hikers, and park rangers, asking if anyone had seen a lone dog wandering the area. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The family put up posters, contacted animal shelters, and shared Barley's story on social media, pleading for help. Sightings were reported, but each time they rushed to the location, Barley was gone. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The emotional toll was immense. Every night they wondered if Barley was safe or if he was cold and hungry somewhere. Did he find shelter? Was he scared? The uncertainty was agonizing, but despite everything, they refused to lose hope. Even as the months dragged on, they continued searching. The love they had for Barley was unwavering, and they believed that somehow, someday, he would find his way back to them. What they didn't know was that even though Barley was lost, he was still surviving, fighting through the harsh elements, relying on his instincts, and waiting for the moment he could reunite with the family he loved. A community's effort to bring Barley home. As weeks turned into months, Barley's family refused to let hope fade. Their once joyous home felt incomplete without him, and the uncertainty of his fate was heartbreaking. But instead of giving up, they turned their pain into action, determined to find him no matter how long it took. They started by reaching out to local shelters, veterinary clinics, and rescue organizations, providing them with Barley's photos and details. They checked every stray dog report that came in, even driving hours to shelters if there was the slightest chance it could be him. But time and time again, they left disappointed, their beloved pet nowhere to be found. Not willing to stop there, they turned to the power of social media. They created a Facebook page titled Find Barley, urging people across the state and even beyond to keep an eye out for him. They posted regularly, sharing every possible lead, every potential sighting, and every bit of encouragement they received. And it worked. Messages started pouring in. People they had never met before joined the search, sharing Barley's story in local community groups, on pet rescue forums, and even among hikers and campers who frequented the area where he was last seen. Some had lost pets themselves and understood the agony of waiting, while others simply wanted to help a desperate family reunite with their furry friend. Then, after months of silence, a breakthrough happened. A woman who lived near a rural farm reported seeing a scruffy dog that matched Barley's description. He had been spotted rummaging through trash bins for food, but as soon as she tried to approach him, he ran off into the woods. The family rushed to the location, hearts pounding with hope, but by the time they arrived, Barley was gone again. Despite the setback, this sighting gave them renewed determination. It confirmed that Barley was alive. Now, the challenge was finding a way to bring him home safely. They enlisted the help of local rescuers who specialized in lost pet recovery. These experienced volunteers knew that dogs who had been lost for long periods often entered survival mode, a state where they became extremely wary of humans, including their own owners. Even if Barley heard his family calling, he might be too frightened to come out. The rescuers devised a strategy. First, they set up feeding stations near the areas where Barley had been seen. They left out bowls of food and water every day, hoping to establish a safe place for him to return to. Slowly, the food began disappearing, but they needed proof that it was Barley eating it. That's when they placed hidden trail cameras near the feeding stations. Days passed with no activity, but then, one night the camera captured an image. A blurry yet unmistakable figure with familiar brown fur and gentle eyes. It was him. Seeing Barley on the camera filled the family with overwhelming relief, but they knew they had to act carefully. If they rushed in too soon, he might get spooked and disappear again. A humane trap was set up near the feeding station, lined with blankets that carried his family's scent. Inside, they placed his favorite food, grilled chicken, something he had always loved. The trap had to be monitored closely. They didn't want him to get caught and remain in distress for too long. At first, Barley remained cautious. The cameras showed him circling the trap at night, sniffing the food but hesitating to step inside. Days passed, then weeks. His family watched the footage anxiously, whispering words of encouragement as if he could hear them through the screen. Then, on a cold evening nearly a year after he had gone missing, it finally happened. The camera captured the moment Barley cautiously stepped inside the trap, the door gently closed behind him. He was safe. Tears of joy filled his family's eyes as they received the call from the rescue team. Their boy, their beloved Barley, had survived unimaginable hardship, but now he was coming home. The moment Barley was safely secured in the trap, his rescuers immediately contacted his family. When they heard the words, "We have him," their world seemed to stop. After a year of pain, uncertainty, and endless searching, Barley was finally coming home. Tears streamed down their faces as they jumped into their car and rushed to the location where their beloved dog had been found. The drive felt both unbearably long and surreal. Every second was filled with anticipation. What if he didn't recognize them? What if the months of surviving alone had changed him? They didn't know what to expect, but one thing was certain. Their hearts had never stopped beating for Barley. As they pulled up to the rescue site, they spotted the crate where he was being held, covered with a blanket to keep him calm. Barley was curled up in a corner, his once well-groomed fur now matted and dirty, his body thinner than they had ever seen. He looked exhausted, as if he had been fighting for survival every single day of the past year. The rescuers warned the family that Barley might be nervous and take time to adjust. Dogs that have been lost for long periods often go into survival mode, making them wary of all humans, even their own families. But the moment they removed the blanket and his family kneeled beside the crate, something incredible happened. Barley's ears perked up. His nose twitched as he took in their scent, something so familiar yet almost forgotten. His tired, dull eyes suddenly widened with recognition. Then, in an instant, he let out a soft whimper, the same sound he had made as a puppy when he wanted to be cuddled. His family called his name softly, their voices shaking with emotion. "Barley, it's us, buddy, we're here. You're safe now." For a few heart-pounding seconds, the dog just stared at them, as if he couldn't believe they were real. Then, as if a switch had flipped, his entire body sprang to life. He lunged forward, pressing himself against the door of the crate, his tail wagging furiously for the first time in a year. He whined and whimpered, pawing at the door, desperate to be close to them. When they finally opened the crate, Barley leaped into their arms, shaking with excitement. He licked their faces, nuzzled into their chests, and let out joyful barks that echoed through the air. It was as if every moment of fear, hunger, and loneliness had built up inside him, only to be washed away the second he realized he was home again. His owners held him tightly, sobbing into his fur, whispering, "We missed you so much. We never stopped looking for you." It was a reunion filled with overwhelming emotion, a mix of happiness, relief, and gratitude. The rescuers, who had witnessed many reunions before, couldn't hold back their own tears. This was the moment everyone had fought for. Although Barley was finally home, his journey wasn't over. A year in the wild had taken a toll on him, both physically and emotionally. He was weak, underweight, and covered in scratches. His paw pads were worn from walking on rough terrain, and his once bright eyes held a hint of lingering fear. The family took him to the vet, where he underwent a full checkup. Despite the hardships he had endured, Barley was surprisingly resilient. He had a few minor infections, some malnutrition, and was dehydrated, but with proper care he would make a full recovery. The veterinarian marveled at his survival instincts, calling him a true fighter. At home, the family took things slowly. They gave him time to readjust, letting him sleep in his favorite spot, feeding him small but frequent meals to help him regain his strength. At first, Barley was cautious. His time in the wild had made him more alert and hesitant around sudden movements. But within days, his old personality began to shine through. He started playing with his toys again, following his family from room to room and curling up at their feet just like he always used to. The love he had for them had never faded. It had simply been waiting, buried beneath the hardships he had faced. Barley's miraculous survival and reunion became a source of inspiration for many. The family shared their story on social media, updating the thousands of people who had followed their journey from the beginning. People from all over the world celebrated with them, sending messages of love and support. His story was featured in local news outlets, and soon it spread even further. Animal rescue organizations used Barley's journey as an example of why pet owners should never lose hope. Many people who had lost their own pets found comfort in his story, realizing that sometimes, even after months or years, miracles can happen. The family also took the opportunity to raise awareness about pet safety. They spoke about the importance of microchipping and using GPS trackers, ensuring that if Barley or any other beloved pet were ever lost again, they would have a much better chance of being found quickly. Barley's return wasn't just the end of a long search, it was the beginning of a new chapter. His bond with his family was stronger than ever, and every day felt like a gift. No longer a lost dog wandering through the wilderness, Barley was back where he belonged, safe, loved, and home at last.